Hey guys, hi.
There is a place where rowdy pirates are pillaging a 1790 village, just down the street from a thoroughly haunted mansion. Youngsters from every part of the world sing a catchy tune. And bulky monsters clash in fierce combat. Stern-wheeler showboat almost within sight of an atom-age marine.
There is a storm brewing, people. This is very serious, and it's time to get scared. I have in my hands the documents that prove that Disney is using subliminal messages to control not only our thoughts, but also our vacations. So today, join me as we dive into all of these subliminal messages that Disney's been sharing with us throughout the years, not just in the movies, but also in the theme parks and even in our own homes. The first bit of evidence brings us to the happiest place on Earth,
Or so they want us to think.
Disneyland in Anaheim, California. Now, Disney and Pixar by extension are known for putting very important life lessons in their movie, very important messages for the whole family that apply to everyone, child or adult. These messages can range from different people being good at different things to, if you're ever fighting a giant made up of millions and millions of copies of yourself, just bring your friend along and have her appeal to their emotions, and that will immediately shut the whole thing down. That was a weird movie. But apparently and allegedly, other messages in Disney movies aren't as in your face, and in fact, they seem to be a little bit more
Subliminal.
Subliminal messages, for those of you who don't know, are usually messages encoded in another piece of media. Ones that aren't easily seen by the normal person, but when you slow down or speed up some parts or use freeze frame on certain weird frames, you'll be able to see some things that don't quite line up. And apparently, companies have been trying to shove secret messages down our throats for years now, and no company is exempt, not even Disney. Legend tells us that Disney places these messages in their movies from time to time. I say legend tells us like it's written in the Nordic runestones thousands of years ago. It's not. It's usually just a case of mistaken identity. And now, allow me to explain. Now let's flash back to a magical time called the 90s, when Disney was riding high off the successes of movies like The Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, and The Lion King. All of the movies during the Disney Renaissance were well received. But the hyper popularity of these movies, mixed with the different culture that we would find in the 90s, made for some adult jokes made by the filmmakers, and some alleged secret messages that were never even there in the first place. Here is how Disney may or may not have been controlling your thoughts without you even knowing all along. Starting with Disneyland. Now, the happiest place on Earth has always been, in my opinion, just that. Super, super happy, and the only glimpses we get into grim territory are riding the Haunted Mansion. But subliminal messages aren't exactly always doom and gloom, and these ones greet you as soon as you walk into the park. When you're walking down Main Street, USA, basking in the atmosphere of Disneyland, you see the castle in front of you, you hear the trolley coming down the tracks, and you smell the ice cream from the ice cream parlor. One of those things is
Subliminal.
yes, the trolley coming down the tracks is real, and the castle you see at the end of Main Street, USA is more or less real, but the smell of the ice cream, now that is what is manufactured, everyone. Now folks, we don't know how long Disney has been using these specially crafted devices to help influence the minds of guests, but this patent for a smell expelling machine was filed by the Walt Disney Company in 2000, although that could just be for Soren. These smellitzers, as they're known, expel various scents into areas where guests tend to walk. So let's use the ice cream example for earlier. You're walking down Main Street, USA, and you smell the wonderful smell of ice cream coming from the ice cream parlor. What you're smelling is not necessarily the actual food inside the store, but instead the condensed smell of waffle cones being wafted out onto Main Street. And these smellitzers or smellitizers are designed not only to get people interested in going into the store, but also to get them to consume the item. But why, Disney? Why? I've been poring over the documents for hours now. Why smell? Well, everyone, it turns out that smell is most closely related to memory in your brain. When you smell something that reminds you of the good old days, it usually makes you feel the same way that you did during those good old days. Happier and younger, I suppose. So now that you've smelled the popcorn coming from the cart, you're reminded of how much you loved popcorn when you were a kid, and you go and you buy some popcorn, and that's exactly what Disney wants you to do. So the next time you smell the wonderful scent of churros or popcorn at Disneyland, just know that that's exactly what they want you to smell. And it's all part of Disney's grand scheme to get you to spend even more money when you're at the parks. But, I mean, the churros are delicious, so I'd say it's worth it. Now folks, you may want to put the kids to bed for this next one. Not only does it inhibit and pervert our ability to enjoy the classics, we now have to investigate each and every tiny little frame of a movie that we're watching to make sure the Shadow Masters aren't subliminally showing us messages that may confound our character. Excuse me. Sorry folks, I'm trying to control myself, but quite frankly, I'm kind of pissed here. Sorry. Now everyone, we know Disney was high-rolling in the 90s, sometimes maybe just a little too high-rolling. When it came to the movies, it seemed like the animators had a little bit more freedom with what they wanted to do, and by freedom, I mean allegedly writing out sinful words in the 1995 VHS release of The Lion King. Now watch closely, everyone.
See? You see? Oh, you don't see it? Right there! Wait! Right there!
Yeah, you're gonna have to go with me on this one. In the Lion King 1995 VHS release, and allegedly in the original theatrical release, when Simba lays down on the cliffside, the petals of the grass and the dust fly up into the sky and spell out something
Subliminal.
Now lots of people say that this spells out sex, but Disney themselves say that this spells out SFX as a reference to special effects. And obviously, just to avoid upsetting anyone, Disney changed this for future releases of the movie. But that's not the only time Disney has been caught spelling out that nasty, disgusting word on their promotional material and their movies. And what about that one time the Illuminati used DuckTales as their recruiting technique? It all just makes too much sense. Or no sense at all. It might just be a case of mistaken identity. I mean, come on, I get that it's fun to make your own fantasy up about how Disney is slowly taking over the minds of the youth and corrupting them into exactly what Disney wants it to be, satanic or otherwise, but you guys gotta remember Occam's razor. The most simple explanation is most times the true one. The Lion King leaves are just an homage to the special effects department, and these examples are just people looking for a message that really isn't even there. So I'm sorry to let you all down there, but there is one more case of Disney using subliminal messages that may be a little more true than you would think. Y'all ever heard of Stockholm Syndrome? And it has nothing to do with the city in Sweden. You see, the name comes from a bank robbery that occurred in Stockholm, Sweden in the year 1973. That's 2 years after Walt Disney World opened, in case you were wondering. You see, during a bank robbery, Jan Erik Olsen took 4 people hostage in the back room while he was committing said robbery. Fortunately, when this all blew over, none of the hostages were hurt and they all escaped with their lives, but something weird happened. When Jan Olsen, the robber, was brought into court, none of the hostages would testify against him, and in fact they even helped raise money to help his case. Criminologist Niels Bergerot, I probably said that wrong, go ahead and add it to the list, coined the term Stockholm Syndrome as a form of brainwashing used by captors on their victims to make their victims feel more relaxed, comfortable, maybe even sympathetic toward their captors. But what does this have to do with Disney, you say? Well, I'm glad you asked. Have you guys ever seen a little movie called Beauty and the Beast? If you recall, in the movie, Belle's father Maurice is captured by the Beast, and when Belle goes to save him, she offers to take his place. Belle is effectively turned into the Beast's prisoner at this point, and as we see throughout the rest of the course of the movie, the two eventually grow to love each other, and we know with the great happy ending, the Beast turns back into a man and they all live happily ever after. Or so we think. But remember, we're talking about Stockholm Syndrome here, so it's not as happy as it may appear. And honestly, I think that in this instance, an argument can be made for both. Is Belle a sufferer of Stockholm Syndrome because she decided to stay with the Beast, or because instead of being taken prisoner by the Beast, she chose instead to stay on her own accord? Maybe that makes a difference. Honestly, I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not Niels Bergerot here, okay? I'm just making uneducated guesses. Well, folks, I think that's everything we have for today. I have to get going, everybody. There's a real big problem. I feel like I've been getting subliminal messages this whole time, so stay tuned for the next episode of Offhand Disney. I'll see you guys sometime in the future. I have to go though. I don't know when I'll be back, but you guys can watch the fort, right? You guys can hold down the fort. I almost forgot I actually Actually need these documents, so. Carry on.